Presented by Scott Credit Union. Your St. Louis
Fan Report! Aloha and mahalo, I am Guy, and this is the BlueNote Fan Report. How are you all today? Yes, the NHL season is finally over, and I'm not happy about it, but is what it is. Now, today I have a treat for you guys. Been talking to this guy a little bit here and there, and he knows his stuff. He's going to enjoy us. He works with me on Inside the Rink. He has his own podcast. He'll tell you a little bit about it. So here, please welcome the one, the only, Mr. Scott Kenville. Scott, how are you doing?
Guy, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. I love that intro, man. That is an awesome video you got. Really
well, thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. I got a couple different ones. I use that one. The goalie mask guy did a show with us, and we had that set up, and I just like the way that it comes in. Redbeard, my buddy Redbeard here is a huge Avs fan, and he knows it. And you and me were talking about this a little bit, and we'll talk about this. For me, and this is for me, it doesn't have to be anybody else. This is the most controversial championship since 1999. The Avs had more controversy surrounding them than any other team I can think in recent history. I mean, the closest that you can get to is the 2019 Sharks, but the Sharks didn't win the cup. I mean, the too many men on ice, that was by and far the worst call, especially in a final, in a very long time. Right? There was no ands, ifs, or buts. And I know, and I'll give you a second here. I know that Avalanche fans are going to sit there and point to a picture that shows McKinnon at the bench. And then at the same time, it shows a total of 7 Lightning on the ice. Problem is, that picture is way past when the too many men on ice happens. It happens much further than that. And I had a video, I talked about it a couple of nights ago. Kadri leaps, there's a player that looks like he's coming off. Kadri leaps on the ice, and then that player stays on the ice. It's a good 10 seconds before McKinnon starts coming to the boards. There's too many men on ice. They have 6 men involved in the play long before that picture was taken. And when that picture's taken, you can see McKinnon at the boards, but every other Avalanche player on the left-hand side of the ice. Now, there's no way that Kadri, who supposedly replaced McKinnon, got to that point where he's at in the time it took McKinnon to get from the 5 foot to the boards. Right? That picture actually proves that it was too many men on ice. Now, do you agree with that? Do you disagree with it? How did you feel about that particular thing?
So that particular call, first, I can understand why Tampa Bay fans would be upset. Okay. Now, of course, that's the wonderful thing about Twitter, right? You're going to see 17,000 different pictures of different screen grabs that people took, and everybody's going to be trying to, well, no, this is what we saw. This is what we saw, right? Because you also saw the pictures of at the time the goal was scored, Tampa Bay had too many men on the ice as well.
Well,
But
that actually
that notwithstanding. So
here's the difference. Here's the difference in that. There's a problem with that. And the thing that everyone looks at, those four players are within 5 foot of the bench. That's a change.
Right. No, I get it. I get what you're saying. I totally understand. And I understand what you mean by 10 seconds before. I get that. But one thing I want to know that I don't think anybody asked Coach Bednar this, is if McKinnon was being replaced by Kadri or not, because Kadri was playing the wing a lot in that game.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know that McKinnon's a center. Now, you're right. It was a missed call. There should have been a too many men on the ice call, right?
Yeah, there should have been. It absolutely should have been too many men on the ice.
However, I will say this, that they don't always make that call. That is something that they kind of, and I think that kind of leads to a bigger part of the problem. Whereas, what do you want from your officiating in the playoffs? Do you want them swallowing the whistle or don't you, right? So, but here's the thing, right? And this is not to disparage Tampa Bay at all. They were great champions. They were. And you're right. That's definitely a controversial goal. I didn't see Tampa Bay being too upset last year when they eliminated the Islanders by having too many men on the ice, scoring a shorthanded goal. So kind of what goes around comes around. Now,
I can see that. I can see that. I can see your point a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
However, there was no question on this one on whether or not it was a change. That's the difference here. There was no question. It's 10 seconds. 10 seconds from the time Kadri leaves the bench until McKinnon gets to the 5 foot spot.
Mm-hmm.
This whole period, the Avalanche controlled the puck.
Right.
At this point, there is no ands, ifs, or buts that it was 6-on-5.
Right.
Now,
and you're right, because you're right. It was definitely controversy, right? Definitely. No questioning that at all. But on the same token, Colorado was dominating that third period and into that overtime. Now, of course, you can always say, well, Colorado was going to score anyway, right? Well, you can't make that assumption because
make that assumption
going to happen, right? But Colorado was certainly outplaying them at that point.
Yeah, but you add now you add a penalty. You put them on the penalty kill. Right?
Okay.
That's something that now changes that period. It doesn't matter. I have seen teams, and by the way, this is Lance Scott from The Drop. Hey, Lance, been a long time. How you feeling, my friend?
Not too bad. How are you guys?
Yeah, hey, very good, very good. We're talking about the Avalanche and their win right now, and the controversy surrounding it. Where my point is, I've seen a team completely dominate an entire game and almost lose that game or lose the game.
Sure.
Right?
One bounce.
We saw this in game 1 of round 2 between St. Louis and Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Colorado dominated that entire game and it got pushed to overtime. Right?
Right.
One play goes differently in that game. One play in overtime, any period, and this whole game flipped. I mean, that whole series flips. So the fact that a team dominates doesn't matter to me. I feel that this is my thing. First of all, the refs have to be in control of the series. And when you have controversy like we've had with Colorado in multiple series, not one series, not 2 series, multiple series, it takes that confidence away from the referees, and it ruins I mean, Avalanche fans are going to be happy. They're going to tell you, just like Redbeard saying, oh, no, we're right. We do everything right. We've never done anything wrong in our Avalanche lives. And trust me, I've heard that. The unitary, it's, in politics, it's called the unitary executive theory. In hockey, it's called the unity of my team theory. Right? If
I like
my
that. I've
team
never heard
does
that.
it,
That's great.
if my team does it, it's not wrong.
Right.
If
Right.
every other team does it, it's absolutely wrong.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right? And that's the thing is it's too often. And I have a solution for this. A very, very simple solution. You put a fifth ref, not on the ice, up in the press box. Not in Toronto, thousands of miles away, in the press box, where he gets the feel of the flow of the game and of the emotion in the game, because emotion plays a lot into how penalties are called. Right?
You could say
If
that.
you did that, I think that you and this is not someone who calls tripping or hooking or any of that. They call procedural penalties, right? They can call some of the offsides where the puck's in the air and nobody else can see it, but where they're at, they can see it. They call the too many men on ice. And now this isn't too many men on ice. This is a period where there's actually 5 guys, 6 guys that are involved in the play. And that's the thing here that bugs me so much about this. I understand, and I looked at that picture. I really, really looked at it. There is one small possibility that the first guy off maybe took a step early, period, a step early. But they were never involved in the play. Tampa didn't have the puck. Colorado had the puck the entire time that there were 6 men on the ice. And not only that, McKinnon was offsides. McKinnon was still in the offensive zone while he's standing at the bench. He never comes off the ice, even when the goal is scored. That's also completely missed.
So you're saying
Right?
McKinnon was still in the Tampa zone
Yes.
when Kadri came across the line?
No, when Kadri came across the line, McKinnon was in the zone. That wasn't looked at.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, you know what, and I understand what you're saying about the referee in the press box, but you know what's funny is I actually and I'm old enough to remember, back in the 80s, right? That's when early 80s is when I got into the game.
Yeah.
I actually think the game was better officiated when there was only one ref on the ice. To be perfectly honest with you.
No, I disagree with that. I do, and I started with the game too.
It goes
Right?
it goes to this though. What we were talking about before the show started, right? Things are so overcomplicated now.
Yeah.
They're so overcomplicated that occasionally something like this gets screwed up. Even a simple chip shot call, something like that. Because everybody's too worried about, well, this year we're going to concentrate on a stick in the hands. Next year, we're going to concentrate on a stick in the legs. The following year, we're going to concentrate, like this year was the cross-check push, right? The cross-checks in front of it. It's like giving the penalty for the puck going over the glass. To me, that's one of the most ridiculous calls there is.
See, I disagree with that. I disagree with that. I don't have an issue.
Do that though.
I don't have an issue with puck over the glass. My issue is it's not reviewable. Do you know that happened? The Avalanche during the Blue Series had 4 pucks over the glass that were never called. 4 of them.
Here's the thing, right? Because, you can have all the camera angles in the world all you want, but it's still going to be very difficult on some of these calls to tell with replay.
No, on all 4 of these calls, the video showed that it went over. But since it's not reviewable, if the refs don't see it, it doesn't happen. This is why I think that 5th guy needs to be there to call things like that. If it's going to be a
like
rule.
that, with all the technology they have with the sensors in the pucks and sensors in the jerseys and sensors here and there, put sensors along the top of the glass, and then you got to.
Well, actually, now here's the thing. I've had somebody bring up the sensor in the puck before. Problem is that using the sensor in the puck for offsides. The problem is that dot is bigger than the puck.
Right. I don't even care about using it for offside. I think that's kind of foolish, I guess you could say. But you could certainly figure a way to use it if the puck touches the glass. There's going to be some kind of a sensor that's going to, something to that effect. I want to bring something up. Okay. Redbeard brings something up, and I'm going to throw this right back in his face. He says, "No, it wasn't. Skate was on the blue and within the 5-foot grace." Well, you know what? First of all, one skate was on the blue, the other wasn't, and second of all,
You guys lost a series because of that same incident where you guys claimed, oh, wait a minute, he was on the bench against the Sharks. The Sharks got a goal disallowed. Our Avalanche got a goal disallowed because a guy was considered offsides while he was changing within the 5-foot grace. So why is it okay? And this is my unitary team theory. Okay, if it helps my team, absolutely. If it goes against my team, not at all. And he does. And he does. He's showing that right there.
Yeah. Like I said, overall though, I thought it was a pretty good series. I mean, that was kind of what everybody wanted, right? Was, you're defending dynasty against the team that had been puffed up to be the next great power coming out of the West.
Yeah.
So I will say, and of course there's no excuses for anything, right? But I mean, the list of injuries that came out after that series is just mind-boggling.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen all of them. I've heard of them. I guess Braden Point had a pretty serious injury.
Yeah, he had a quad tear.
Quad tear. Yeah,
guys playing with knee injuries, shoulder injuries. I think they said Hagel had a foot fracture from the Florida series, right?
Wow.
But I think too, what happened to Tampa Bay, even more so than all that, was, listen, that team has played a lot of hockey in the past 3 years. They've gone on very deep playoff runs. Guys like Andrei Vasilevsky get worked constantly. So I think maybe what you started to see was them starting to get a little bit worn out, which is completely understandable. After playing that much hockey for 3 years, it's bound to happen at some point. So I think you did see a little bit of that. I think you saw guys, not having guys like a Yanni Gord or a Blake Coleman not be there kind of hurts too, because Hagel was brought in as a replacement for guys like that. However, again, we just found out today that he did have a foot fracture from the Florida series. Even though, I'll be perfectly honest with you, I didn't think he played all that great when he came over from Tampa even before that, or even from Chicago. I'm sorry. So that's it is what it is, and they're going to have some problems to deal with going forward because they're already over the cap, and they still got to get Palat back. They got to get Nick Paul back.
Yeah. They're one of the teams. Them and Vegas. Vegas right now only has 19 contracts.
Yeah.
16 players, and they're already $3 million over the cap. 16 players.
Well, and
they can't even field a team next year. Say again?
Did you see that? They promised Riley Smith money. They
verbally they're in a lot of trouble. Well, Red, you tell me which one's right and which one's wrong, because you complain both ways. Avs fans, the 10 of you that are true Avs fans, complain both ways, right? I've never seen a more bandwagon fan base than the Avs. That's for definitely sure, right? And I say that, and some people think I'm being facetious or making a joke. I haven't heard one person disagree with me. In fact, like you, well, he got that one right. I've had Avs fans come on this show and tell me, yeah, you're right.
Well, right? We'll see what it's like for next season, right?
Oh, well, see, they're going to I'm going to love it because they bought the championship in my eyes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's
because they're not going to be there at all.
Well, I will tell you this, that the Avs are going to have a hard time next season in regards. I mean, they got $25 million.
Okay. I'm sorry. This is not at ref's discretion. He was on the ice for 10 seconds. 10 seconds. And the Avs controlled the puck in the play for 10 seconds with the Avs controlling the puck. That's not discretion. That's 6 men on ice and has to be called. Period. End of story. You had the puck. You had 6 men in the play for 10 seconds. And then you blame the other team that only had 5 for not being able to stop you. Well, I wonder why they weren't able to stop you. Yeah. Lance had to drop back out. Hopefully he'll come back. He might be mad at me. I don't know. He loves me.
Great. I love it.
Yeah, no. Maybe the Blues have done it, but they haven't done it in a final. No, I do have a dislike for the Avalanche. I have a dislike for the way this played out. I still, you cannot convince me that Kadri did not purposely run into Bennington. I'm sorry. I know that 99,000 99,999 people will tell me that it was an accidental play. And I'm sorry, that doesn't mean it was. Right? There's too much that's missed in there.
You know where the problem with that is, Guy? You know where the problem all that stems from? What we were just talking about earlier in the overcomplication of the rules, right? Yeah. Now, it used to be if you touch the goaltender, that was it. Play's dead or goal is disallowed. Now they allow for so much incidental contact. If it didn't matter if the play was going to be able to be made or not, and I'm not saying either way whether Kadri, I don't know for sure, to be honest with you, but it's that attitude that I can go to the net now, and if I hit the goalie, all I got to do is make it look good, right? That I was trying to avoid him, or again, it used to be, and I know I'm starting to sound a little bit like a dinosaur here, but it used to be if the goalie was in his crease, off limits.
Yes,
you don't touch him. Period.
I know. I agree with you. I agree. I think it needs to go back to that.
And I think if they're going to be serious about protecting not just Binnington, but all goaltenders.
Yeah.
If you're going to be serious about it, that's where you got to clamp down.
Well, here's the other thing. As fans talk so much about Kane and that cross check, right? Mm-hmm. And actually, it wasn't a cross check because a cross check, a illegal cross check, is arms extended, right? Not this.
Right.
Your arms have to be 100% extended, correct?
Right.
Okay. Kane did this. That. He did. His elbows did not lock. His arms were not straight out.
I will tell you this, that you know what hurt Evander Kane there? Evander Kane's reputation. That was a reputation.
Well, you know what? What about Kadri's reputation?
Oh, yeah.
Kadri's reputation is even worse.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying a lot of times when these things happen, it's because, oh, yeah, I've seen him do that before, right? And you've seen it happen with everybody. I mean, or guys that, quote unquote, have bad reputations, right? Even if they're not doing something illegal, if it looks like it, wow, we're going to make that call. But I mean, like I said, because as you can see in the background there, and I know your listeners probably don't want to hear this, but I'm a Kings fan, right? So
okay.
So we know all about Evander Kane and the Oilers from the playoffs this year. Trust me, we know. Yeah. All right. But again, that's one of those deals where, reputations catch up with guys. That's simply what happens.
Well, see, and again, this is my big issue, and I got to be careful because it comes off so crass, is how we turned Kadri into a mafia don. Right? You get the reference?
I understand. Yeah, I got you.
Right? No, we did. We turned Kadri into a mafia don. Right? We turned him into and I can't think of his name, the Teflon Don. What was his name? Huh?
John Gotti.
Yeah, John Gotti. We turned him into John Gotti. That's exactly what we did. And I hate to think that it was true Blues fans that would do that, because I would never do something like that, because I know that's bulletin board fodder and that comes back to haunt you.
Right.
It came back to haunt the Blues in 2001 after a double overtime loss where I think it was Waugh had to make 51 saves. It might not have been Waugh. I forget who the goalie was at the time. 51 saves, and someone wrote something in the newspaper about swill and all this stuff, and it was the Avs came back just pissed off, right? So I know all about bulletin board fodder. So I tend to think that the majority of the people that did that were not true fans, because a true fan knows better.
Yeah, you would have to think that, right? But I mean, speaking of Kadri, I'll be honest with you. You know what I was just saying earlier? The Avs have $25 million in cap space to play with. I don't think Kadri's back in a.
Oh no, Kadri's not. Well, they have 25. I think it's 26 million.
That's the thing.
With 12 guys to re-sign. 12 guys.
And we're not talking about minor league names here either.
Yeah.
We're talking. Let me put my glasses on, because sometimes all that small print, right? Let's see. So you got Kemper, you got Niskanen, Josh Manson, Burakovsky, Lehkonen, who I thought actually played pretty well for them, especially in the final. He was a very good third-line player. So those are just some of the names. I don't see how they're going to be able to fit all this in, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I see.
Because I think
they're losing some major guys. Kemper's gone. Kemper, by far, is the worst, if not the second worst goalie ever to win a cup.
Yeah, there was definitely times where it's like, wow, man, really?
Yeah.
That backhand goal that Hedman scored from the faceoff circle.
Yeah, it's just it was bad, and that's what's so hard to me. That's just what adds to the controversy to me. The fact that and I guess I have a buddy who does Windy City hockey. Nick, he's a Blackhawks, and he'll tell you that Niemi is probably the worst goalie to ever win a cup.
Right.
But they had just such a great team. The Avalanche are going to lose so much, right? And I know Redbeard will tell you that, the core is going to be here. You're losing, and if you keep those two, you're still losing 10 players. 10 players with Kemper, your goalie leaving. Yeah, I know you don't trust Francoeur. Maybe you do, but I don't know how long that's going to last. I mean, he doesn't have more than like 15 or 20 games in a season under his belt, and you put him in for 50 games. I don't think he's going to do that well. And all that chemistry that's walking out of your locker room, I'm sorry, that's a lot.
Sure.
Right.
And I totally agree with what Redbeard just says here. Nichushkin and Manson, they absolutely have to keep those two. Have to.
Right.
And here's what adds to the whole complicated mess is
if you take, let's say that both of them get $5 million each, that takes you from 26 million to 16 million.
Right.
For 10 guys.
And here's what complicates the matter, the waters even more is, okay, if Kemper wants to get paid because he just won the cup, which he probably will, fine and good, but who's available in the goalie market? Everybody's looking for one.
The number one goalie available right now, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, is Husso.
As far as free agency, correct?
Yeah, in free agency, the number one goalie. Actually, no. The number one goalie is I think Husso is more sought after than Marc-Andre Fleury right now. And the reason I say that is because, and I know that sounds you want to like, what the fuck are you talking about?
No, actually, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No. I was going to say, because I actually thought that the Avalanche should have traded for Marc-Andre Fleury at the deadline if they really wanted to load up.
I think that was the mistake that Minnesota made.
Yeah. Right.
I think that's the mistake that Minnesota made. I think Minnesota made a huge mistake trading for Fleury because it caused somewhat of a goalie controversy. And Fleury ends up playing the first games where he probably shouldn't have.
Right.
To be honest. Right?
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I didn't understand that because Cam Talbot was playing well for them.
Yeah. You know what? This is one of those times where I think Vegas is absolutely freaking wrong. They are not going to repeat. They're losing way too much.
Nope.
Right?
No way.
Who's so greater than Bennington? Well, you know what? If that's what you think, Bennington would have beat you. If Bennington doesn't come out of that series, the Blues play for the cup. I absolutely believe that. 100% believe that. Right?
Yeah. I mean, that could have, I'll tell you, that would have been a real interesting series with Edmonton.
Well, not only that,
the most problems until Colorado beat them. It was a team like LA that plays that defensive style game like you and I were talking about.
Yeah.
So I think that would have been a great series, to be honest with you. But I was looking more along the lines of a guy like Alexander Georgiev out of the Rangers, right? So obviously he wants out. He's not going to get any playing time. Shesterkin's there to stay. So I'm sure the Rangers are going to be willing to move him to to get whatever they want, prospects, whatever. So, but other than those names we have just mentioned, really, what's out there? A heck of a lot.
Yeah, but I think also right now a lot of teams have some pretty high end prospects in the goalie pool, right? I mean, that's one thing. Like St. Louis, that's what makes Husso expendable. Is St. Louis in the goalie pool is stacked.
Right.
I mean, they're stacked. Even, and I know a lot of people look at Lindgren and go, oh, well, Lindgren's been crap everywhere he's been. Well, you know what? Lindgren hasn't had a team behind him or in front of him like St. Louis is right now, right? He's not going to go 5-0. I absolutely agree with that. But he's going to do, I think he does a good job backing up Bennington, at least for a month or two, to give Husso just a little bit more time in the minors before Husso comes up. Or not Husso, Hofer comes up. But you look at St. Louis right now. I'm sorry. You look at, and I just seen Jim Thomas put out on his Twitter the Vegas odds, and I think they're an absolute joke.
Yeah.
I no, I do, because right now, look at St. Louis. Do you know what they're going to lose from this year's team? What I think the only thing that I think they're going to lose from this year's team is Letty. That's it.
Potentially,
Right?
yeah.
And I think you can get another Letty cheaper than Letty. Right? Well, okay. Now I know Bozak's not coming back. I know Husso's leaving, but there's replacements in the minors that are just as good, if not better. So to me, they're not losing anything there. Right? Letty is the only, and I'm pretty sure Perron's going to re-sign. I know, and I'll get Lance here in a second. I know Lance is not happy about that, but I just think that he's going to end up re-signing. Go ahead, Lance. Your turn, bud.
I have no problem with Perron signing. The problem I have with Perron is the Blues have $9.3 million in cap space, and according to what I've heard, he's asking between $5 and $6 million on a 3-year deal. They can't afford to pay him that with all the free agents coming due next year and all the RFAs they're going to have to give raises to. Sure, there'll be a few guys come off the board after this next season, like Brown. Brown's not coming back to the Blues after next season. He's just not. And,
All depends on what
$9 million, they've got some things that they could spend on, like you said, replacing Letty. Bozak's not coming back. I know some Blues fans wanting to, for what reason, I have no idea. But if they can get Perron for around $3 million, $3.5 million, I'll be fine with it. But they cannot afford to give him a 3-year contract at his age for $5 to $6 million, which is what he's been asking for. Now, can he get that from somebody else? I think he could, but the Blues just can't afford to pay that with all these guys coming due. And I know, Guy, you want the Blues to keep Tarasenko, you want them to keep O'Reilly, and that's fine with me if they do that. But if they have those plans to do that for both those guys, they can't give Perron a 3-year contract. They just cannot do it.
That's where you and me do disagree. Because I think you have to gap next season with Perron. I don't think you can have Perron be available next season at the same time that Tarasenko and O'Reilly are.
You can't have $5 million on the books for Perron after next season.
Maybe you can get him for 3 years at 4.
I don't want him for 3 years. He's getting too old. If in the 3rd year you're going to be regretting that deal with the young guys coming up. You're going to be.
I just don't want him to have a 1-year deal. You have to bridge over next season.
You give him a 2-year deal. You give him a 2-year deal at $3.5 million. Anything more than that is asinine. You cannot do that.
A 2-year deal at $3.5?
Nope. Nope. Because he's 34 years old. I don't want a 37-year-old David Perron on my team. I just don't, because I see him as one of those guys like Steen that when he falls quickly. And I like him, Guy. I want him back. I really do. But I want him back for 2 years under a necessary term. And, you're talking about odds makers earlier. These odd makers are idiots. They've got Vegas up there. They've got Toronto up there again. And, of course, all the Leafs fans, odds makers have us as number 2. Well, how good did that do this year? I think you were number 2 or 3 before the year. Toronto's never going to win a cup until they move on from either Tavares, Nylander, or Marner, or one of those top guys. They're not going to move on from Matthews. And maybe his contract is up.
Matthews is one. I'd say there's probably about 10 to 15 players in the league that are untouchable. And Matthews is in that category.
Yeah, because I think Toronto's going to hang on to him. He's going to want to stay there. But Tavares is getting older. You've got Nylander. And, and you know what? Out of all their contracts, he's the one that's going to be easiest to move, because I think he's making $6.5 million. Yeah. That's going to be easy to move. A young player like him, they can get defensive help. They can upgrade their goaltending a little bit. They've got to upgrade their goaltending, and they've got to get better defensively to win a cup. You can't have 4 guys making $40+ million with an $82 million cap, Guy. You can't.
You can't. You're right. Absolutely. I completely agree with you. So Matt Lowe says, I read somewhere that they're trying to re-sign Husso. It was Andy Strickland that has put that out.
Can I say something about that?
Yeah.
I like Andy Strickland. Andy's a nice guy. Too. Andy is the mouthpiece of the Blues. He did the same thing when Backes was a free agent. Doug Armstrong is trying his best to bring back David Backes, and Armstrong knew there was going to be more money out there for him. I don't believe this one bit. The Blues cannot afford Ville Husso because for two reasons. They're going to have to pay him $3.5 to $4 million. They're going to have to give him a 3 to 4 year contract at least. And there may be teams that will offer him longer. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Hoffer's ready now. And you can't keep a guy that's ready now.
I think he's close. I think he's close.
I
got to tell you, I was not impressed by him in the Cobbler finals. I watched every finals game.
I did too. And I'm going to tell you.
He did not impress me one bit.
After being in golf, yeah, and he didn't impress you at the beginning of the year when he came up with the Blues. But I'm going to tell you, after playing goalie for 36 years, some of it in very high competition at a high level.
I know that.
Hoffer's got what it takes. If he's not ready this year, guy, he's ready the next year. So then what do you do if you sign Husso to a multi-year deal?
No, I don't agree with signing Husso to a multi-year deal. I don't.
Yeah, and he's not going to take really 1 year. He's not going to take 1 year.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, guys. What are you paying Bennington? What is that, $5 or $6 million?
6.
Okay.
6.5.
He got a 6x6. He got a 6x6, and he's in the first year of it.
And so out of what? 6? Okay, so you cannot have more than $8 million or $9 million tied up in your goaltending.
I agree with that.
You can't do it.
I agree with that. I think
a lot more than that. Goodbye.
I think you can get Lindgren on a 2-way deal still. I think he would sign a 2-way deal. You get Lindgren on a 2-way deal, and you bring Lindgren up for the first month, maybe 2 months, and give Hofer just a little bit, because I don't want Hofer backing up Bennington with that bad taste in his mouth. I want him to get a good taste in his mouth before he comes and backs up Bennington.
Hey, guy, I'm going to tell you one thing right now. A goalie, the good ones, the ones that are good, they could care less about last season. Bad taste in your mouth, whatever, even being young. You move on to the next game. You don't even think about, especially last season. What is 10 starts going to make a difference to Hofer in the minors? He's learned what he's learned in the AHL. He's not going to learn any more. He's not going to get any better. He's not going to get any worse. And Lindgren's an AHL goalie who can give you 5 to 10 games a year if you need it. That's what he is. And
okay,
I like him as an AHL
goalie. Lance, that's a fair assessment. I think, and I want to say one name to you, and this to me, this is the name that backs me up. And I know it's not a hockey name, but I think it makes sense. Are you ready? Rick Ankiel.
What about Rick Ankiel?
I think Scott gets it, right?
I think
Rick Ankiel had that bad outing in the World Series, and you sit there and say, "Oh, these guys don't." It doesn't bother him. Rick Ankiel never got over it.
Right,
guy,
he never got over it.
I'm gonna tell you something right now. I played baseball and I played hockey, and a goalie's mind is totally different. I've talked to the people at Springfield. They told me during the season that when they brought up Lindgren, that the Blues would have been just fine bringing up Hofer. The reason they didn't want to bring up Hofer is because they thought
Hofer got hurt.
Yeah, but he was hurt. But the reason that they didn't even think about bringing him up is because, number one, they thought that Lindgren at the time would be there for a couple games. They didn't want Hofer to come up for just a cup of coffee. And I like Rick Ankiel. And Rick Ankiel was the difference between Rick Ankiel and Hofer, if you want to look at it that way. And I understand the comparison. Rick Ankiel was a supposed not missed prospect. Could be one of the greatest pitchers of all time. Yes. Nobody's saying that about Hofer. Hofer could be a very good goalie, but he's not this can't miss prospect with all this pressure on him. And goalies are wired differently. Trust me, we are. We're different.
That. I get that, and I really do. I just see. I don't think the Blues organization is looking at Hofer as Martin Brodeur, Patrick Waugh, Terry Sawchuk, Ken Dryden. I don't think they're looking at him that way. No, they're not. They're looking at him as somebody who can back up Bennington, because I think Bennington is back. I really do. I think the Bennington of 19 is back. And 19 and 20. A lot of people forget this. Bennington in 20, prior to the bug, was outstanding. Was sitting at 2.1, 2.2.
I think it was 2.2 or 2.3.
Yeah, right. And his save percentage was like 920, 915. It wasn't a 900 and a 2.9 or 3. It was right. It was in that elite range, right? And then he had this fall behind after the bug and he never seemed to get back.
Well, I think if you remember, Guy, and I can't remember if it was reported, but right before the playoffs that year when they played Vancouver, I was told that he had COVID right before that. Yeah, he had COVID.
He didn't have it right before, but he had it when we started hearing about all the players. Weeks. About all the players having COVID.
Yep.
That's when he got COVID. So it was about 2 months before the playoffs started.
I think it was about 6 weeks. But like I said before, I can't imagine. I had COVID, and yeah, I'm an older guy, but I can't imagine a goalie having COVID and missing that much play and being that worn out and coming back and playing well.
The original strain of COVID was pretty serious. Okay,
it was. Yeah.
That was the one that killed the most. That was the one that hospitalized the most. That was the one that did the most damage. And the long term of that wasn't known. Well, not only, so he has that. He comes back. He doesn't have a good playoffs. He then gets COVID again. He had COVID 3 times.
Yep.
Right? He got COVID again in, I want to say November, before the 21 playoffs, our 21 season.
Mm-hmm.
And you could see in 21, he never was recovered. Then he starts 22, and he starts 22 in that, oh my goodness, this is the Bennington we were waiting for. He gets COVID in early December, and then we see the bad Bennington again. COVID has affected him and his play very differently than it has affected others. But when we got to the playoffs, and he got in, he said, this is my net and you're not getting it back, period. And until he got hurt, that's what we saw.
How much hell did I get from coming on your show from fans and saying on my podcast that Bennington should start over Husso? And I know we had disagreed a little bit in those first couple games, but I mean, I think I was proven right. When Bennington came in, Bennington was better than Husso.
I was ready to pull Husso in game 2, and you know that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I was okay with game 1. He pulled this pitch to shutout. But in game 2, as soon as he gave up that goal, the 2 goals on the first 3 shots, I was ready to yank his ass. Right?
Yeah, I remember.
Because again, to me, I look for patterns. And Scott, I know you haven't been on the show a lot, and I hope you we're not
it's all good, man.
Setting you aside, my friend.
I
love the undercurrent of the game. Sure. I hate the surface of the game. And that's what like Redbeard has brought up a lot. Oh, well, this is, that we had the 6 men on ice, but their guys should have stopped it. That's the surface of the game, right? And a lot of people, that's all they look at the surface. But the undercurrent of that is, the reason they couldn't stop it is because they're dealing. When you're playing, you're not just looking at the puck, you're looking at other things. So instead of them having to worry about just the puck, they've got to worry about the pass, and there's things that they shouldn't have had to worry about had it not been the too many men on ice. That is the undercurrent of the game that I love so much. And with Husso, when he gave up those 2 goals in 3 shots, to me, that Husso of 21, when he did that consistently, comes back, and that history comes back for me.
And in all honesty, I think if the team has another good goalie and they want to do a 1A, 1B like Elliott and Allen, and one of them play 40 games, the other play around 40, I think Husso will be fine. I think if you want Husso to be your number 1 guy and put in 50 games, 50, 55 games, he's not that.
Yeah, Husso's not a 55-game guy.
No.
Right?
No. Actually, there aren't a lot of those in the league anymore. That's the league's starting.
You're right. There's not a lot of them. And, we were talking about Vegas earlier and talking about goalies. You know what the latest rumor is? I know we were all talking about that Marc-Andre Fleury is going to go back to Pittsburgh. I've talked to people in Pittsburgh. They don't want him back because, number 1, they're going to have to pay him too much. Number 2, he's going to have to split time with one of their younger goalies, and they don't want to do that to one of their younger goalies. The other team they're talking about is maybe he'd like to go back to Vegas. They don't have the money for that.
He can't. They have. I was looking at this. I was just looking at this. This number, this boggled my mind. Okay, the Vegas Golden Knights, right this moment, their roster is 16 of 23.
16. Yep.
16 of 23, and they are 2.65 million.
Yep.
Over the cap.
Mm-hmm.
2.65 million over the cap.
Guy, but before they even got Eichel, when they signed Pietrangelo, what did you and I say? They're going to be
it's going to affect them down the road. This was the Pietrangelo signing was the end of the Knights. They were gonna fall after that. There's no doubt in my mind that was going to happen.
Yep.
Really good. Honestly, good on the Blues for not caving into them, because that contract is going to be a nightmare in a couple of years.
Oh no, it's already a nightmare. It's
but
already a nightmare. It's already hamstringing them. This is why I have such an issue with the no movement clause. And one of the guys that's been on the show before has said, well, I don't understand why a no movement clause is so bad and all this other stuff. This is why they're stuck with that contract. They can't move it. And not only that, I think Eichel has a no movement clause.
Just about all of them do. All those big contract guys do.
Yeah, well, that's in the league. If you're on the Blues, you're not getting a no movement clause. You better be. You know what? I say this right now. I don't think that McDavid could get a no movement clause from the Blues.
Yeah, right.
Right? I know. I honestly, I don't think that McDavid could get a no movement clause. This is something. And look, I have not been the biggest fan of Doug Armstrong. I haven't. There's things he's done that I've questioned heavily. But I got to tell you, lately he's hit some home frickin' runs. Right?
I like the Torrey Krug signing. I really did.
Say again?
I like the Torrey Krug signing. I really liked that one.
The Krug signing?
I did.
The Justin Falk, Marshall Falk, in my football days.
Hey,
the Justin Falk signing, the Falk signing, the Saad signing, the Bushnevich trade.
Well, that was highway robbery. I don't know why the Rangers were so eager to get rid of him. I don't understand that one.
That was no look. I've seen some trades where you look at it and you go, okay, that maybe I see that. I don't know what Doug Armstrong, what pictures he had to pull that trade off, or how the league even allowed it, because it was a lopsided trade in my eyes.
Well, I know the Rangers didn't want to pay him because they were looking at the Zibanejad extension. They were looking at the Fox extension. I think in the back of their heads, they were thinking, okay, we're going to give the net to Shesterkin this year. And if he proves to be the real deal, well, now we got to pay him too. Not to mention, you're already giving Panarin, $11.5 million a year. So I guess I can understand that. And they managed to get Chris Kreider actually on a pretty good deal, but still, to only get, what was it, a second round pick? I think it was.
No, third round pick.
Okay, well, even worse, right?
Sammy Blaze, and I think it was a third round pick. I think it was our third round pick this year.
That's right. That's right. So
and Blaze was hurt, so that.
Right.
Oh, I gotta love Redbird here. Says with the Avs being the last Central Division team to win a cup, this is our division. You guys aren't. You know what? I'll call this now. I would not be surprised if the Avalanche missed the playoffs next season.
Whoa!
I would not be surprised.
Wow.
Right, you and me were talking about this when we first came on.
Well, there's gonna be changes in the Western Conference, that's for sure.
The Central and the Pacific are going to flop spaces. Where the Pacific was very weak last season, they're going to be very strong this season. They have more teams that have made strides upwards than downwards. The Ducks are going to be better. The Canucks are going to be better. If Edmonton gets the right goalie and not Husso, they're going to be better. Calgary, depending on what they do after Gaudreau leaves, could be better, right? The Kings could be better. There's enough teams in that division that I see being better than being bad. In the Central, right now, there are only two teams in the Central that I see being better, equal to or better than last season. Everybody else, I think, is taking a step backwards. And not only that, you have two teams in the Central that have already said they're going to enter the Connor Bedard sweepstakes. Right? So that's 2 teams right off the bat, Arizona and Chicago.
Right.
Right? And my buddy Wendy, who was here earlier, will tell you that they're in the Connor Bedard sweepstakes. They're not going to do anything.
Hey guys, I'm sorry, I'm not in my studio. I'm on my iPad, so I was having issues. Sorry about that.
Hey, you're fine, man. I look at everybody else, and I'm, I told you who my 2 teams were. If you look at every other team in the Central, and you go down starting from 1 to 8 this season, I can tell you the Avalanche are not going to be as good as they were last season. They're not. I'm sorry, I don't care that the core is in place. They're losing way too much.
Well, guys,
they're losing way too much experience.
You have to look back. You have to look
chemistry.
back a couple. You have to look back a couple years. I would say, for the last 3 or 4 years, everybody has been thinking the Avalanche it's their year to win the cup.
They built up to it.
Yeah, they built up to it. Over the years, they got better, with their line combinations, and because for years, what did we say? Well, all they have is the McKinnon line.
Yep.
And then they drop way off after that. Well, they fixed that problem. Now they're going to run into that problem. I don't think they're going to fall that far, but they are definitely not going to be the top 2 teams in the Western Conference. I don't see that at all. I think they're going to be around the 3rd to 5th team in the Western Conference.
Well,
they're
there you
going
go.
to make the
But I only think 3 teams from the Central are making the playoffs next year.
I think 3 to 4, but I would not be shocked if it was 3. But
right?
I wouldn't be shocked if it was 4. It definitely ain't going to be 5.
Okay. Oh, I know it's not. So you have Colorado that I see taking a step backwards.
Yep.
Minnesota is going to take a step backwards because Minnesota could lose both their goalies.
Not to mention Fiala.
Cam Talbot right now has told them, trade me. I do not want to play for you anymore.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know this guy, but when they traded for Andre Fleury, he was pissed. He went in and had a meeting with the GM and the coach.
I'm sure. I said that. I brought that up. That trade made no sense to me because what was it going to do to your – first of all, you traded away the guy that was your future, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's mind-boggling.
Yeah, and you know what? I thought that Minnesota would be in the trade, part of the season there, and they'd make a couple of moves.
That wasn't the right
I thought
move.
they'd make more moves on the defensive side. I was shocked when Andre Fleury went there, and Talbot after Andre Fleury got there, they got along just fine. They were good teammates. But I mean, put yourself in his shoes. This is one of your best years as a professional. You think you're going to be the team's number 1 going into the playoffs, and then they bring in a future Hall of Famer that's going to come in and take over for you?
Yeah, what's that saying?
Right. Yeah. No, it did. It really did. And once Bennington got in that series changed. And here's the difference. This is why I think that Bennington has found a part of his game that when he had COVID, he lost. And that's his puck handling ability. When he was in the net and COVID was gone, in the playoffs, when he was handling the puck, he became that third defenseman, and he kept Colorado out of the zone. Could not play with Bennington playing the puck. They could never get set
Guy,
up.
if you noticed and remember, when Bennington came in, Minnesota wasn't forechecking as much and bringing as many players in to get that puck because they knew if they did,
that was the change.
Right.
That was the change, right?
Well, I do want to say something too, because Guy, you brought up a great point earlier about the underlying parts of the game, right?
Yeah.
So on my show, we did our playoff preview, and I said that both the Blues and the Capitals are both teams that could potentially give the top teams like a Colorado or a Florida in the Eastern Conference a lot of problems. Why? Because you are talking about teams that have been to the top of the mountain recently. They know what it takes to get there. Whereas now Florida completely fell flat on their face against Tampa Bay. That's embarrassing.
Yeah,
to be perfectly honest with you. But I seriously, and people called me nuts. The guys, they're like, no way, Colorado's going to mop the floor. I'm like, well, time out. Because, you're looking at, oh my God, they almost won the President's Trophy. This, that. It doesn't matter. When you get into the playoffs, it's wipe the slate clean. It's an entirely different season. And in the playoffs, if you can play that tight defensive game, getting the puck out of your own zone is absolutely key. You cannot be hemmed in. Teams that can do that, who did it? The Blues, right? And look at the problems they gave the Avs.
Yeah.
That was really their biggest challenge. I'm going to say they were a bigger challenge, honestly, than Tampa Bay was. And that's,
they were.
They were.
Tampa Bay was pretty much out of gas by the time they got to the Avalanche.
Do you realize how close St. Louis actually came to beating the Avalanche?
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying.
They came that close. Game 1, the Avalanche completely dominated that game, and they damn near lost it.
Yeah.
One play could have changed that game like this, and the Blues win that game. Blues won game 2 in pretty dominant fashion. They pretty much, other than one spectacular goal from McKinnon, the Blues handled that game the entire way.
Yeah. I picked Colorado to win in 7, but I did say before that, out of all the teams Colorado could face, the Blues give them the most problems.
Yep. And you look at game 3, until Bennington gets hurt, the Blues were controlling that game. Right? Bennington gets hurt.
Can I say something real quick? I don't know if you talked about this. It kills me that one of the dirtiest players in the league, in Kadri, not only takes out Bennington, but then some stupid fans make some racial comments and threats to him. And all of a sudden, this thug who took out one of the top goalies in the playoffs at that time, that could have led his team to another cup appearance, he all of a sudden becomes this hero, and he's this tortured person, and he's this poor Muslim guy that everybody hated, and a lot of it had to do because he was Muslim, and they were all celebrating Kadri, and I'm like, what is wrong with this world?
You know what? We turned him into freaking
and a hero.
A mafia don.
Yeah.
All right. What was you said his name earlier, Scott? Now.
Oh, you're talking John Gotti.
John Gotti.
Yep.
We turned him into John Gotti. That's exactly what we did. And that's not me being racist. I'm not being racist. I'm not at all. But that's what hit. John Gotti was a dirty man. The feds went after him, couldn't pin on anything on him, and the media loved him for it.
Loved him. Yeah.
Loved him for it. He got called the Dapper Don, the Teflon Don. He in New York City, he was celebrated. And everybody forgot all the dirty stuff he did until he finally did something dirty enough to get him in jail, and that's where he died. But that's what we did. We turned him into a mafia don.
Yeah, and you know what's sad is? There are 8 to 10 stupid teams, from what I'm being told, that will make a move on Kadri and try to sign him. I think that is the dumbest thing in the world.
They're going to pay him.
They're going to pay him. He's going to get paid, and that's why he's not going to return to the Avs, because they're not going to be able to afford it.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you, whoever pays him in 2 to 3 years is going to really regret that contract.
Well, they're probably going to have to give him a 5-year deal.
Yeah, he wants 6. Yeah, he wants 6, but I think he'll take 5.
Right, and especially for the right money, of course.
Yep.
I'm hearing he's wanting 7. He's wanting 7 to 9.
So, and because this is his real last chance at the big contract.
Well, you know what? Here's the problem, and I was talking to this with my fantasy group. When you sign contracts, you are not looking at GMs are not looking at their salary cap this year. They're looking at their salary cap the next 3 or 4 years
5.
down.
Yep.
Well, the contracts that are expiring now, right? The AAV that's expiring now. When these guys sign these contracts, the cap was projected to be $86.5 million for this coming season.
Right.
This is huge. What a lot of people don't realize is that 86.5, all these contracts were written with that number. Well, now the cap is 82.5, $4 million less than what was projected. We're not looking at seeing 86.5 until 2026, 4 more years down the road. That's 8 years later than it was originally projected.
Mm-hmm.
Guys that are looking at contracts now, thinking they're getting raises, are really going to have to go back and rethink things. The economy has changed. Teams, and I know teams are going to hate hearing this, they're going to have to lower ticket prices, because if they don't lower ticket prices, they're not going to have people in the seats. today's economy, when you have, I pay, and I'm lucky because I pay it on the military. I don't pay as much of the taxes anyways. $5.30 a gallon for gas. Gas is going to be $6.50 by this summer during the height. In October, people aren't going to have that disposable income because it's going in their gas tank. Guys, I think GMs are going to really have to sit down and explain the economics of the situation to agents and to players. And players are going to have to look at, if they really want their money, they're going to have to sign longer term, lower dollar contracts.
I also think, Guy, I think they're going to have to have a meeting with the owners that don't understand it too, because these owners have thought one way for such a long time.
You know what?
We can go out and do this. We can go out and do that. And I think there's still going to be some teams that get stupid, but I'm with you. I think, if you've got, here's your decision. Do you want to pay $12,800 for 2 club seats for the Blues next year? Or do you want to maybe just go to 5-10 games and be able to feed your family and pay your mortgage and so on and so forth? I'm sorry.
It's going to affect people. It's going to affect attendance. It's going to affect a lot of things. Players right now, a smart player, like, to be honest, Perron. If I'm Perron, I look and say, okay, I got paid $5 this year, thinking I was going to get a raise, but you know what? The salary cap it's not the 86 that everyone thought it was going to be. Now, instead of me looking at this overall total, so if I wanted $5 million for 3 years, that's $15 million. Okay, how can I get that $15 million? If you look at how you can get that $15 million, you sign a 4-year contract, a little SAAV. That's what they're going to have to look at. You're going to have to look at to sign a lower contract with a lower AAV and possibly some bonuses in there.
Yep.
And the other thing that you're going to have to do is that no trade clause is going to have to go away. I know that's going to be really hard for some of these guys that have younger kids that are trying to look for stability. And that's what a lot of this was, stability. I get that. But you have to look at the economics of the situation. And Lance, for all those owners that don't get it, i.e. Colorado, Toronto, Edmonton, the Rangers, and a few others, more power to them, because they're going to fall off. They're going to fall off that cliff faster than my issue. My biggest issue right now is if there's any issue in the world that needs to get fixed, it's what Buffalo did.
Yeah.
Buffalo did something that's not being talked about. And it originally, when it first happened, I was like, okay, it kind of makes sense. But then when I realized what they did, to me, it's a circumvention of the cap floor. And that is a bigger issue than someone circumventing the cap ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Did you know what I'm talking about, Scott?
Yep.
Well, actually, when I think of that kind of stuff, I actually lean more towards like an Arizona who's constantly taking on these dead contracts. I actually thought you were going along the lines with like what Buffalo did with getting rid of their big contracts.
Oh,
but
Buffalo signed Ben Bishop.
Oh, that okay. Well, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up.
Hold on.
I'm glad you brought that up.
They signed Ben Bishop, and they will never
That's
pay Ben Bishop $1 single.
Right. They traded.
You know why they won't pay Ben Bishop $1 single? Because Bishop's contract was insured.
Front-loaded.
When he got injured and retired, the insurance company pays that contract.
Yes. And I'm glad you brought that up.
They circumvented the floor. It's a bigger issue that they circumvented the floor than it is that Tampa circumvented the cap.
Guys,
now, let's be honest, Arizona's been doing this for years.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you something. The owners of the Coyotes and stuff, they're bad. But if you want the worst owner in the NHL, there are people that will say the Devils owner might be, and some other teams. The worst owners in the NHL are the Buffalo Sabres owners. Yep. They don't want to pay anything. They want to try, like you said, circumvent. They want to stretch things as far as they can. And, Ryan O'Reilly has told a few friends of mine some things about Buffalo. He's not going to come out and say it publicly, but he didn't enjoy his time in Buffalo. Let's put it that way.
No, he didn't. He said it. He said, I was going to quit hockey.
Yeah.
I lost the love of the game playing in Buffalo.
And he was trust me, he was being nice publicly.
Yeah. Right.
But
No, it does. I think it's
Scott.
a bigger issue of a team skirting the floor, because that's a team that's telling players we're not going to play you. We don't think you're worth it. Right. And now when it comes to the negotiation for the next CBA, that's going to be a bigger issue than any team that circumvented the cap.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And Scott, if you're a free agent, even if you're a guy that's going to make $2.5-3 million, do you want to go to Buffalo?
It's funny because I live upstate New York, right?
Yeah.
As you can see, I got the Comets jersey over my shoulder because I actually live about 25 miles away from Utica, obviously.
Okay.
And I have been to Springfield to see a game. That's a beautiful facility, by the way.
Cool.
And I always found the irony so great that it's all decked out in Blues colors, right down the road from the Bruins, who obviously still got a little bit of animosity towards the Blues.
You know what? I'll tell you something. Lately, I have come to love Bruins fans. I have had so many Bruins fans come on this show and just expound on the Blues and talk about the Blues and the style of play and their fans and things like that. They have changed. I had a very bad interaction with a Buffalo fan at Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Finals. I flew, 28 hours. I flew from Hawaii to St. Louis, was in St. Louis for 28 hours.
I think you mean Boston fan. You said Buffalo.
Boston fan, yeah. Just for that Game 3, and I had a Boston fan. You basically elbow me and try and take me out walking down the hall.
Right.
So I had a bad experience. And look, man, I flew, for me, I spent close to $4,000.
Yep. Easy.
One game.
Yep.
Sure.
Right. One game. And that's not the experience I want. Now, I hated that they lost, but I was still happy that I was at that game.
Right.
Yeah. But it recently, and some of the Boston fans that I've had on here, they have been absolutely amazing.
Yeah. I was going to say something, Guy. I was going to say something. Scott was going to say something earlier about Buffalo, and I wanted him to be able to get back to that.
I'm sorry.
Say. Oh, you're good. You're good. So here's the thing with Buffalo, right? And it's funny because it's the Pegula family, right, that owns the Sabres, and they also own the Bills.
Yep.
Now, the funniest dynamic happens out there because they're loved by Bills fans because, the Bills are winning, right? So you kind of tend to forget about that when everybody's winning. If the Pegulas would do the whole, kind of like when George Steinbrenner backed off on the Yankees a little bit and they finally started winning, let your hockey people run the team. You make the money, whatever. I think the Sabres are in the right direction because the players, from everything I've heard up here, love their coach, Don Granato. They love him.
Yeah, he's a good coach.
And the biggest thing that they did was get rid of Eichel and Reinhart because, according to everybody up here, right, they were horrible in the locker room. And you can't have that when you've got a young team like that. Yeah. You simply can't have that. So I think they're on the upswing. I do, however, know for a fact that that building used to be filled every night, no matter how bad that team was.
I remember. Yeah.
And my wife and I went out for a game out there in March to see the Kings play. And it was a Sunday afternoon. It's not like you're talking about middle of the week here, right? And there was about 8,000 fans in that building, and it was sad.
Yeah, no, it is.
It is sad.
That's what I talk about.
Guys, it's such a great hockey town. It really is. It's what they call a border city. So every game, whether there's two American teams playing, it doesn't matter. They play both the American and the Canadian national team, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, and I also know that high school hockey in Buffalo is really big too.
Huge, absolutely huge. But going back to what we were saying about the cap floor, guys, I'm going to tell you the biggest culprit here is the LTIR, and that just gets so abused. Yeah, that something has got to be done about this, right? These teams that are signing these, say like a free agent hits the market at 31 years old, and a team gives him a 7-year contract, but it's a little bit less money so we can string it out so we can bring it in. They know damn well that by 35 years old, probably not going to be working out too well. Oh, you're hurt? Okay, well, we're going to put you on LTIR. Oh, well, we got a team like the Coyotes or the Senators or the Sabres. that don't want to pay anybody because they're playing all prospects and they're too, they know they're not going to win. Well, we're just going to dump that contract off. Well, that's not right either, because that's an unfair competitive advantage.
Yep.
Well, yeah, it is, especially since here's the thing. There's one way to get rid of it. There's one way to fix that straight up, right? And I bet you the insurance companies would love this. If there was any insurance agents watching from an insurance company, they would jump on this. If you trade for an LTIR, you have to pay the contract, not the insurance company.
Yeah, either that or once a player hits 35, go ahead and put them LTIR all you want to. You can't trade them.
Yeah, and I think another thing that would help, and it really got me upset. Blackhawks fans will tell me I'm wrong. Marian Hossa put on LTIR for a skin condition that he can't wear jerseys anymore. Yeah. Well, then you do a little more investigating, and he's had the skin condition since he came into the league.
Right.
So why now all of a sudden is it bad? You know why it's bad? Because Chicago needs to get rid of that cap hit.
Right.
So I think you need to get a second. I don't care what a team doctor says. There needs to be outside doctors come in.
Yeah, I'll agree
whether
with that.
It's 1, 2, or 3 and say, okay, that's right. This guy has a skin condition. He can't wear jerseys anymore. This guy's back's bad. He can't play anymore, because teams wouldn't be able to get away with that anymore if they did that and what Guy recommended.
Right. And I just, like I said, I think it's a ridiculous system, to be perfectly honest with you. It's just.
Well, I honestly don't have a problem with LTIR if it's used right. Right. So here's a condition of LTIR where I think it was used right. Alexander Steen had 1 year left on his contract. Right. It counted against the Blues salary cap. Alexander Steen couldn't tie his skates anymore.
Right.
Right. He could not physically could not play hockey anymore. He retired. However, since he still had a guaranteed contract, that money counted against the Blues. I don't think it should. That is where LTIR works.
Right. Exactly.
Now, where LTIR doesn't work is the case of, and I can't think of his name down in Tampa. I want to say Stamkos, but it wasn't Stamkos.
Kucherov.
Yeah,
Kucherov.
Oh, you're talking about trading for. Okay,
who gets a surgery that was elective, originally was said not needed, was considered an elective surgery, missed the entire season. If he doesn't get that surgery, they would have had to play the majority of the season one man short because they were so far over the cap. Yep. They put him on LTIR. Now they have $9 million free, and they're able to bring guys in, and then he plays in the playoffs.
Yeah,
I totally get that the players do not get paid for the playoffs. I get that. And I get that there's an expanded roster. I get that. I think that what NHL should do is, even though the players do not get paid for the playoffs, their value should not change. And you should be you raise the daily cap. The overall cap is 82.5 this coming season, and I don't know what the daily cap, but whatever the daily cap is, you raise it to accumulate 82, 83, 84.5. You give $2 million extra of cap room for the playoffs. This way, when you're in the playoffs, you still have to meet that salary cap. Now, you have 25 guys on the roster, and I understand that.
Right.
That's what the extra room is. If you're going to go over, then you take guys off your roster. You put guys on the Black Aces. You put guys somewhere else. But you don't sit there and have a guy take an elective surgery. Now, look, did Tampa do anything wrong? No, they did not. I want to make that known first.
Not by the letter of the rule. You're right.
Again.
But what made it look really bad
was Kucherov was
fully practicing with the team 8 weeks
before
the playoffs started.
That's right. Fully, yeah.
We're not talking about just going out for a quick skate around the ice. He was out there practicing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and listen, in that year in particular, and I don't want to sit here and rehash the past. It's over. But Tampa was very comfortably in a playoff spot. They didn't need Kucherov back. Because if you recall, their division was awful that year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So all they were able to do was load up at the trade deadline. They brought in David Savard, and who was the other big one they brought? I think it was Blake Coleman.
Yeah,
they brought
I
in,
think so.
which helped them win which, but you're right. You're right. By the letter of the rule, they did absolutely nothing wrong. However,
doesn't mean the rule's right. It doesn't mean the rule's right.
Kind of thing. Oh, he's still hurt. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
So I guarantee you, if they were, in a dogfight for a playoff spot, they wouldn't have been playing those shenanigans. Yeah. No way.
No, I don't disagree with that. I really don't. I just want the rule is bad, not what they did. The rule has to get fixed.
Exactly.
Right.
You're right.
And again, I understand, Kucherov practicing and all of that, but again, by the letter of the rule,
right. Exactly.
That's what it was.
Yeah, I had a buddy of mine
has some problems.
I had a buddy of mine send me a picture when he was skating. It was like 6 weeks before the playoffs, 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And he goes, look at our defenseman who's on LTIR, and he's out there skating with him. And it you know what though, guys, Scott and Guy, it's not going to change because the owners like it and the GMs like it.
Exactly.
Well, you have to have when you have a hard cap, you have to, and especially this isn't baseball, okay, where a guy gets an injury and he's out a couple of days, right? This is a physical sport where guys can either be out for weeks at a time or be out for the season all of a sudden, second game of the season, he's out for the year. How often does that happen? Pretty regular.
It can, yeah.
Right? Pretty regular. You lose a guy within the first week for the year. So there has to be a relief for that. Sure. And right now, the best system is LTIR, but it just needs to be fixed to where you're not putting guys on LTIR that are questionable to be put on LTIR.
Right. And what's the fair way to determine that? That's the sticking point right there. You had a great idea, Guy. I totally agree with it. But I mean, it's a constant.
Well, what mine does is it prevents the salary floor being circumvented. The salary floor, and the reason I say this, and I guess for a lot of people, what's it matter that they don't pay as much as they're supposed to pay? They're still at the floor. Well, that's $5 million that a guy should have been getting that he's not getting. This is a team that says they're paying X amount and they're really not. And that the players are going to have a big issue with that. That is something that is a point when it comes to negotiations that gives the players standing.
Right.
Right. So. And that's the thing when it comes when you look at labor disputes in sports, 9 times out of 10, most people side with the players. However, there are instances, and especially in the NHL lately, the fan base has sided with the owners. Right? You go back to 2004. You go back to the strike, the lockout in 2004, and I'll tell you the majority of players side. Okay, Lance, no problem.
Yeah, it was nice meeting you, Scott.
Fans,
you too,
nice
Lance.
meeting you, Scott and Guy. I'll see you again.
Absolutely.
Yep. Lance, you're always welcome, bud. The majority of fans sided with the owners for that lockout.
Yeah.
Ticket prices were out of this world.
Yeah.
Salaries were going way beyond that. You were getting at the New York teams like that were able to pay and win. Teams like St. Louis overpaid and then had to dump everybody so they could sell the team. It really hurt what that was going on. To be honest, the owners do not need to do anything to give credit to the players, and that's what I think's happening here.
I think you're right. And I almost even wonder, does a hard cap work for the NHL anymore? I understand there's got to be some kind of a cap because there has to be. You're right. Yes. But maybe look at a system like what baseball does, like with the luxury tax, where
I don't like the luxury tax, to be honest.
Go towards like the escrow that the players are really struggling with, because that's like a lot of their holdup is the escrow, right?
Because they don't. That's the other thing. You like David Perron's going to sign a $5 million contract. Lance is bitching about, I don't want to pay him $5 million. Well, the problem is you're not paying him $5 million. In all actuality, you're only paying him 3.5.
Right.
Because whatever, 40%, 30%, whatever that goes into escrow, and he may never see that.
Exactly.
Right. So that is an issue. And I get it. I don't like the luxury tax because you look at baseball, which has the luxury tax, and you look at the difference between the highest paid team and the lowest paid team. That's pretty significant.
Oh, it's massive. It's
right?
massive. You know, like the Yankees and Dodgers and say like the A's, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
if you put that in hockey, you're going to see some very small market. In fact, you're going to a luxury tax would be the end of hockey in Canada, except for Montreal and Toronto.
Actually, not if you kept the salary floor. I don't think.
Huh?
I don't think if you kept the salary, kept the floor, but just instituted a luxury tax, right? Instead, because they still have to meet that floor. So no matter what, they're going to. And let's be honest with you. I mean, if a team is, one of those teams that's struggling to meet the salary floor, do they really need to worry about paying a player $10 or $11 million? Because they're not going to. They never will. So what's the difference, right?
Redbeard wants me to say that the Avs are the best team this year because it's the truth. Well, it's not the truth. I don't think they were the best team. I actually think because of what happened in the Blue Series. I'm telling you, how many people will sit there and say, if Bennington doesn't get out, this could easily change. The majority of people will tell you that Bennington is the turning point in that series. Game 3 was the turning point. That doesn't happen. We don't know the Avs are lifting the cup. So, no, I won't say they were the best team. The Hurricanes won the President's Cup, so they were the best team this year.
Actually, I think it was the Panthers that won.
Panthers, okay, the Panthers.
But the point being, right?
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I was very disappointed in Calgary. I thought Calgary was going to be a much tougher out. I will agree that they did a lot of their regular season with smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
I think that. I think they played way above their heads. But just knowing Daryl Sutter's reputation, especially in the playoffs, it was astounding to see them just flop like they did against Edmonton. Especially their biggest rival. I mean, it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, no. By the way, Redbeard, I'm a Buddhist, so my gods are not your gods, and my gods know what I'm saying is what I'm saying. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Oh, man, Scott, great show today, bud.
This has been fun, man. This has been
a lot of fun. And you notice I get a lot of activity from my fan base. So
absolutely.
They'll ask you questions, and I'm glad that they did. I'm glad you had a good time. Hopefully we'll do this again soon. We got the draft coming up. I'm really interested in the draft. And actually, next time we get on, I want to talk to you more about Utica and the guys they had last year, because they had the Blues. They had Blues players last year, right?
Did. Two seasons ago. 2 seasons ago, because it was
Vancouver. Well, I mean, for when I say last year, I mean
the
21 season.
Right.
Yeah,
it was the short
COVID season
where Vancouver and St. Louis combined because Springfield shut down because of the virus and all that. But that was actually kind of fun having those. It was weird but fun at the same time.
Yeah, you had Joshua for a while, and Joshua was a pretty interesting player.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was fun being able to see, different players that you were rooting against, by the way, the season before, but see them come together like that. It was a really good to interesting time. Very interesting. Even though, I just listen, anybody was glad to have hockey, even if it was a shortened season.
Yeah.
And mixed up mumble jumble as it was. You did what you had to do, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, that was just it was a heck of an experience to have, you had guys like Arnaz. We saw Joe Offer for a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, that was that you really got to see some great players that you don't and honestly, in a situation like that, you don't appreciate how good they are because you don't see them that much until they're combined with so
you got to see Walker for a bit.
Yes,
right. Walker, you got to see Santini.
Yes,
who's proven to be a very good NHL defenseman. So yeah, you guys got a little bit of the Blues right now. I think are one of the teams that people are not. I think they're discounting. They're looking at that series with the Avalanche and going, "Oh, the Avalanche owned them," and they really didn't.
Well, it's like I told you. like I told you, I knew going into these playoffs that teams like the Blues and the Capitals, who people were underselling like crazy, thinking, oh, they're old, they had their run, they had their fun, they're done. Well, they know how to play playoff hockey. There's just no getting around that. So I mean, especially Craig Berube. Berube knows what he's doing as far as that goes.
Yep.
So
Redbeard, I dip into it all, my friend. I dip into it all. Right. Again, man, thanks for coming on. I greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I think who was it that said that they wanted to come on with us? I forget. I think it was Colin, right?
I think so.
Yeah, we'll have to reach out to them and try and get some more guys. I've had a few guys from inside the rink. I got to get my writing back. My writing's off track right now for some personal issues, but I need to get my writing back on track. But I love doing this, and I love talking. So
this is somewhat, I know I do too. Sometimes, I get on my show, we just get off on tangents. It's like, oh, if we're at the 145 mark, we better wrap this up. So.
Yeah, we've easily hit that. So by the way, if you ever want me to come on, just let me know, man. I'm more than happy to do it.
Absolutely. That would be and you know what? That would be great to have somebody, a different perspective like you got, because you got a lot of great thoughts, and we'd love to have you on. So,
oh, well, I greatly appreciate it. Well, man, have a great time. Hey, everybody, this is Guy, the Hawaii Blues fan. Got to know that I'm bleeding blue with you. For Scott Kimball. And what's your show there, Scott?
Marty's Illegal Stick Hockey Podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
There you go. Scott, thanks so much. This is Guy, the Hawaii Blues fan, saying aloha mahalo. And you got to know I'm bleeding blue with you.